Hello, in this presentation we're going to talk about proposed changes to the accounting classes. Objectives will be to propose short-term changes to increase pass rate, propose long-term changes to improve program and pass rates. So here are the short-term changes. I think these are the low-hanging fruit. Replace longer Connect problems with shorter problems outside of Connect. So I'll go over the pros and cons in that in a second. Update video links to format that works better on phones and tablets. So we currently have video links that kind of walk through the problem and then they do the problem. So we walk through the problem, then do the problem. We could format the video links to work better on phones and tablets. I think we can do that, which could be helpful to many students that use that type of resource. Update discussion questions. I don't think this would have a big impact on the pass rate, but it might have some impact. I think there are some discussion questions that we could update. Long-term changes. Only cover the accounting cycle in AC 1110. So if we talk to current instructors and all past instructors that I've ever talked to in a 5-week program, they would all unanimously say that we should not cover more than the accounting cycle in the first class. And we used to do that a long time ago. We haven't done that for quite some time. Although we have made vast improvements in terms of the amount of content compared to where we were at the maximum amount of content that was in this class at one time. For some reason, as instructors, we haven't been that persuasive to convince anybody else of this. And I think the reason for that is that there's problems to change the syllabi, to change the content in the syllabi, and if we change one class, then we have to change other classes. But what's going to be most important to the class, to the students, it's going to be the accounting cycle, and not only that, it's going to be chapter 2. So we could really basically spend the entire course on chapter 2, which basically talks about the core accounting transactions that are going to be done in an accounting office day to day, day in and day out. That's what the accounting department does, is record those core transactions all the time. And so we could limit all classes to 4 chapters instead of 5. And I know I'm talking about chapters instead of content, and sometimes we like to talk about the content in the chapters, but it's just a lot easier to talk about units in terms of chapters, because if we start talking about content itself, then we got to use accounting terminology. And luckily, accounting is really pretty standardized in terms of financial accounting. It's broke out pretty standard way. So if we just talk, I mean, the chapters have a pretty standard set of material, and we do have to cover basically all of it to get through the financial accounting materials. Replace longer Connect problems with shorter problems outside of Connect. So this is one option we can take a look at. The Connect problems sometimes seem to confuse the students, and they sometimes just don't do some of the Connect problems. And part of the reason might be that the Connect is basically a database program which shows how to calculate things, or doesn't show how to calculate things. You kind of implement data, and then it does some types of calculations. Now, we're going to have to use a database program or some kind of Excel sheet or some area that we can put in numbers into a spreadsheet. Is just how do we want to format that. And other thing is, the database program, Connect uses a lot of bandwidth, so the database programs sometimes, if they have a slower internet or if they don't have internet, then they can't get on to the Connect all the time. It might be good to have some problems that they could download, that they can work offline. And there's some differences in the way the feedback works as well. So we'll take a look at that in a second. So this is basically what a week looks like in Connect. These are the Learn Smarts. I'm thinking we're probably going to want to keep those. And then we might want to replace this longer problem. So this is a problem that we input data into a database program. The option is to put it in here or to put it into something like Excel. Let's take a look at that. So here's what the database program looks like. This is Connect, and so this is what one of the longer problems look like. And what you do is you enter the information into the yellow areas here, and then you would populate it, and then you would go down here and still populate this area down here. Now, some of the things in here it's a little intimidating, because when students put in numbers, some of the cells just populate and some don't. Some of the yellow cells are not going to be used, such as these yellow cells. So we're not going to use all yellow cells, even though the yellow cells indicate where we can enter data. Now, the pros on Connect is there's automatic feedback. Once you submit this up top, then it'll give you some feedback on it, depending on what the settings look like. And you can also get feedback on the bottom with this check your work feature down here. We've had some problems getting students to use these features, and I've tried to upload instructional videos and whatnot to show them how to use these, but many times they look at this and they just don't use those features. They don't get to the point of doing that. And I think that's one of our problems. We also have an issue where it's difficult for instructors to give feedback. So if a student has a question as they go through this, they can't really just screenshot the screen or anything like that, because they can only screenshot a piece of it. They can't screenshot the whole thing. It's a little difficult for us to go in and see it sometimes and give feedback. We also can't give feedback such as we were if we were going to grade a paper. If we were grading a document that's going to be a paper, we can go in and put notes in the margins and stuff like that. We can't really do that here. So the computer gives good feedback. It's a little bit more difficult for us to give feedback. When we give feedback in Moodle Rooms, it's very disconnected from Connect, obviously, because they can't see the problem at all. So it's hard to see something that's visual and write something in Moodle Rooms about it. So on the other hand, if we had something like this in Excel, a lot of instructors feel that the comments are easier to do in here. So if a student had a problem in something like this, notice you can see it all on one page. It's still intimidating looking. It's going to be because it's a spreadsheet. But it's all on one page here at least, and students might see that as a little bit better. We can limit the amount of problems we have here. Students could download something like this and actually work it offline if they chose to. They could just download the spreadsheet and work it offline. If they have a problem, they can email it to us, and we as instructors can do the same thing as someone grading a paper could. We can mark it up and make it yellow or something like that. We can add notes and say what went wrong and do things like that. We can also give an example problem if we choose to. So we can have an example tab, and this will show the exact problem, but just an example, so they can go over here and say, where did that number come from? And unlike a database program, they can kind of see, I mean, it'll take them a while to figure out Excel, but they can see the formula and the references and how the thing works, and then go over here and try to do the same thing in this tab. And then we also have instructional videos, so we can just have the link here. So unlike in Connect, I can't put the link to the video. We could make instructional videos to help out with the problems, but we can't really put the link into the same area. We have to put it somewhere else where it's kind of hard for students to find. If we put the link right in the document here, then they can open up the instructional video and they could walk through the steps of the problem in this way. And this will actually show them how to use Excel too. It's very basic formulas. We're not talking about anything advanced in Excel. They're just going to enter plus and minus in the blue areas, but they get some feedback on that as well. They can also have closed captions in here, so they can see that, so they can see how to do the problem. Not the same problem, different numbers here, but similar problem, very similar. And then they can use that to put the information in here. Also, when they upload this to Moodle Rooms, then we can go in there, we can see it, we can download it, we can then make comments and upload the document back to them with the instructor comments on them and allow them to continue on it. And the settings in terms of late work and things like that are a lot more straightforward. We as instructors have a lot more flexibility. We don't have to like change the date or something to allow the late work. We could just take it on a case by case basis in that format. So if we took this week by week, then in week 1, I would propose basically maybe even just removing this entirely in week 1, because in week 1 they're just getting used to the information. We already have a problem in Moodle Rooms, and it's very similar to this one. So I'm thinking maybe we could just remove this one and not replace it in week 1. We could replace it, but I'm thinking we just remove that for week 1 since it's the first week. And then in week 2, we remove this one and we add in its place a smaller problem that would be in Moodle Rooms. And same thing for week 3, same thing for week 4, and then in week 5, I'm thinking the same thing, that we remove this one, and instead of, and we also remove, there's a small problem in Moodle Rooms, and instead of having those two, we just replace it with one more comprehensive problem outside of Moodle Rooms, one that would be in Excel.